Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode two of All the Champions, House of Footy's very own Carlton Football Club podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Patane, and we're back today with another great guest for you all. But before we get to him, welcome back to my co-host first, Chloe Williams. Chloe, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good. And Yuri Bilicic. Yuri, how are you today, mate?
Yeah, going well, Brandon. Great to be back on.
And now it's time to introduce our guest for episode two, an ever-present player in quite a dark period for our great club. He played 99 games for the Blues and kicked 127 goals. It's Brad Fisher. Brad, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the call. So, what does a day in the life of Brad Fisher look like in 2024?
Yeah, chasing kids around, mate. First thing, yeah. So I've got a couple of young kids. We live down the Mornington Peninsula, and yeah, usually up nice and early, get the kids sorted for school, and yeah, take off to work, and yeah, just run a little building company down here with another former player, Greg Bentley, who played maybe 9 or 10 games back in 2009. Yeah, he's a builder down here on the peninsula, and yeah, we've hooked up 3 or 4 years ago, and yeah, we just sort of cruise around down here and keep ourselves busy. And then, yeah, then it's back to the kids after school. And, yeah, pretty routine these days.
Awesome. You're living down on the peninsula, Blair Gary? Is that
Yeah,
where
we're
you
in
live?
Blackberry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very good.
nice and quiet,
Great
except
area
for
to live.
maybe, yeah, it's nice. About 6 weeks of the year, it's mayhem. But that's all right. Good for small business and everything else. But, yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, nice and close to the beach. And, yeah, live a pretty relaxed life, which is good.
At
Yeah,
least the
very
traffic
good.
jams don't line up with school time, hey?
No, that's it. No, there is no, apart from January. There's no traffic. Yeah, right down the end there. So yeah, can't complain. No, I've become a Melbourne snob. Lived there most of my life, and if I go up there now, all I do is whinge about the traffic. So yeah, I try and tell everyone I'm a local, but apparently you have to be 20 years down here before you can call yourself a local. So I've still got a bit of work to do.
That means I've made
That's the
it.
way.
Yeah, you're 20 years, eh? You're all
Yeah,
you all
well,
your
I
life.
mean, oh, actually, yeah, I am.
Yep. Okay. Well
Yep.
done. Good on you.
Obviously, starting in East Burwood, playing for them, and then playing at the Eastern Rangers. When did you realize that the AFL dream was actually possible, and what do you remember about your development in those junior years?
Yeah, I suppose as a young kid, you're always a better player in your local team, and you think that means you're going to go on and play AFL. And then reality sinks in once you get to about 14 or 15, and you first get invited down to Eastern Rangers pathway or a development pathway. And I've got a vivid memory of the coach at under 15s at Eastern Rangers said, look, maybe one of you, maybe two of you will ever end up on an AFL list. And I'm looking around seeing all these players that I thought were champions in our local competition. And yeah, I couldn't believe that. Yeah, he seemed to think, oh, I thought we all were gonna. And he said, yeah, one or two. And yeah, then reality, yeah, it was a bit of a reality check. And yeah, I suppose I'm not sure when I knew that the dream was alive. I got cut from under 18, Vic Metro, and yeah, I was pretty skinny and pretty raw, so I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And yeah, I was probably a bit surprised when I got drafted. I thought maybe it'd be a chance for a rookie list, which back then was no money, and you couldn't play in the senior side and all those sorts of things. So I thought maybe that might have been my go. But yeah, anyway, somehow I found my way onto a list, and yeah, that's how it went.
Brad, in the lead up to the draft, and I think you mentioned this in another podcast as well, but some of the teams that were interested in selecting you, of course, the Blues drafted you 72nd overall in that 2002 draft. What are some of the other conversations you had with other clubs as well in terms of picking you up?
Yeah, I didn't get any promises at all from memory. My memory isn't great, but from memory, I never spoke to Carlton leading into the draft, so I had no idea that they had any interest in me. And I know Geelong had sort of said, look, they came out to my house and said, we won't take you in the national draft, but if you're around in the rookie draft, yeah, we think if we've got a pick there and you're around, yeah, you'd be a good chance to to end up on Geelong's list. But yeah, I think that was the only sort of half conversation I had that suggested I could end up on a list. I think the rest were just you have a handful of clubs come around to your house and have a bit of chat about hey, if your footy's going, and try and get an idea of what sort of a young kid you are. But yeah, I wish I remembered more. It's a regret I have. I wish I remembered more because yeah, once every couple of years when I do a podcast, it'd be nice to be able to give a bit more info. But yeah, my memory is pretty foggy on it all.
Coming through that kind of period of time with Cade Simpson, legend of the club and a great mate of yours, what was it like settling in alongside him and playing with him in particular towards the mid to late 2000s?
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, I remember ringing him as soon as he got drafted at pick 45, it might have been. And yeah, I rang him as soon as I was drafted and came up with our plan on how we're going to get into the club the next day. And yeah, we both lived out in the eastern suburbs for 2 or 3 years after we were picked up, so we'd carpool in every day, and it was awesome. I knew he was going to be a superstar. It took him a couple of years, and then then now I'm just Kade Simpson's mate. Whenever I whenever I chat about anything, or whenever he was reaching another milestone, I'm Kade Simpson's mate. But proud to be. He was worked his backside off, and a phenomenal player.
Playing in quite a tough period of the club's history for pretty much the entirety of your career alongside Cade. What was that like, and what were the big changes, especially that you saw from the Pagan era to the Ratton era, that you feel helped us take the next step in the latter stages of your career?
Yeah, I suppose early days you've got nothing to compare, a coach to or a club to. You're just excited to be on a list, and just worrying about keeping your head above water and trying to get a game, and look, my experience and probably Simo's as well with Dennis Pagan was really positive. He really backed in the young players, and he was playing the long game. He could have easily played some older guys and got a few more win-losses. But look, I had a great experience under Dennis. Some players seem to have had a different experience than I did. But I think when Rats came in, he let the boys play a little bit. You see that in Damien Hardwick and some of these coaches who you often hear them talk about just allowing the boys to have fun and go out and express themselves. And there was certainly, it felt like there was a bit of a weight lifted off the shoulders of some players, when Rats came in and let them go about their business and sort of express themselves. And then he injected a nice fast game plan with a few of these fast players like Chris Yarran and Eddie Betts and Jeff Garlett and these guys running around the forward line. It was pretty exciting.
So in 2007, Brad, ended up being a career best year for you. You kicked 39 goals, and there was only 3 games you missed as well. You fractured your cheekbone against West Coast in round 4, came back for round 7 against Collingwood, and although the team finished bottom 4 once again, there was a really stirring win against Port Adelaide, who ended up reaching the grand final that year. I think you guys ended up winning by 39 points, and there was at one stage you were up by 10 goals midway through the third quarter, and you were pretty instrumental in that game. Do you remember most of that night as well? Because I think it was definitely one of those games that was not expected the Blues would win.
No, I don't remember too much about the night. I do remember beating them at Etihad that year, and look, I think our best was always pretty good. Even when we were finishing sort of towards the bottom of the ladder, I think we had a pretty potent forward line, or I should say potent full forward in Brendan Favola, and I think we used to score pretty highly. I think we'd lose some games, and you'd be a bit flat, but you've scored 110 points or kicked well over 100. So I think our best was pretty good. We could sort of get on a bit of a roll, but certainly we could leak goals going back the other way. And I think all through that period, even from right from when I first got there, we could see internally, you could see the club was building towards something. We obviously had the draft pick issue where we missed out on some elite talent, and that held us back a little bit. But you could definitely feel that we were building, and by the sort of late 2000s, we were reasonably strong and reaching finals.
Just to follow up to that as well, Brad, was there one single aspect do you think that changed that year that allowed you to have your career best year?
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what it is. I think it was the only preseason I ever got through unscathed. I wasn't good enough to not have a strong preseason, and for whatever reason, I always got injuries or dislocated elbows and broke toes, and just did things at knee reconstructions and things like that, post-season surgery. So I had one pre-season and I had one good season, to be honest. So, I would have loved to have been that little bit more durable because, like I said, unfortunately, I wasn't good. Some blokes are good enough to come in off a short run up and, have a really strong contribution. But, I unfortunately wasn't able to. And, it's no secret to me that the one year I was able to, basically do every session, I was able to have a pretty strong season. So, I look back and I don't have any regrets or anything, but disappointed I didn't get a chance to do a bit more work over summer and give myself a better look at it.
This is kind of circling back to a couple minutes ago, really, but what was it like playing alongside Fev and, kind of contributing to his career in a way?
Yeah, I did contribute. I used to lead up out of the way, and then he'd be able to have all the space in behind me. So, look, it was awesome. Sometimes I think I've said before, but I don't look back too often and think about playing footy. But when I do, to have front row seats and watch Fev, at the MCG, some of those games where he's kicking big bags and lifting us over the line, it was unbelievable. I've always said I reckon he would have. I think we just became too Fev dominant because he was so good, and I understood why. But I used to think he'd kick just as many goals if we weren't as Fev dominant because. he'd get one-on-ones instead of, we'd kick it to him when he was 1-on-2, 1-on-3, and so half the time he was good enough. But I reckon if we had a bit more talent around him. I think when Jared Waite was really up and going, was when Fev had his best couple of years as well, because the ball would go through him a little bit as well instead of always to Fev, and yet Fev would end up kicking more goals because he'd get more one-on-ones. But just a freak talent. It was unbelievable the things he could do on a footy field. He used to shake your head a little bit and be a little bit envious that you couldn't do them yourself.
All right, I want to ask about one game where we were very Fev dominant, and you were probably told to be Fev dominant. I think you know where I'm going with this. That infamous game in 2008 in round 22 against the Hawks. Fev was stuck on 98. You help him get to 99. He's double teamed, sometimes triple teamed. What do you remember of that night? What was the instruction? And even being in and amongst it, he's an outgoing man, a loud man. What do you remember from him specifically that night?
Yeah, I remember before the game as players, we were talking about trying to get him to 100 and go through him. But then I sort of remember the coaching staff and that not mentioning too much about him at all pre-game. I think just sort of we're going to see what happens and let it happen. And then I think at halftime he hadn't kicked any, or he kicked one, or whatever the story was. And I think we were well down. And from memory, Rats and the coaches sort of said, let's try and get some ball through Fev. And then, at three-quarter time, the address was just about getting Fev to 100 and clearing that out of his way. And unfortunately, he was copping 2-on-1s. And at the time, I remember thinking, surely Clarko will just let him, have a 1-on-1 and kick his hundreds. But then I heard him speak, it might have been years later, and he said, they were about to embark on a final series. They ended up winning the flag, the Hawks, and he didn't want his players out in the ground for an extra half an hour with all the supporters out there running around and jumping all over him and all that. So once I heard that, I sort of understood. But it would have been a great memory if we could have been out there tonight. Fev kicked 100, and a bit disappointing he couldn't quite get there.
About as well, Brad, that the club was building. So in 2008, the results were absolutely incremental. You guys end up finishing 11th with a 10-12 record. And there was a few sort of disappointing games as well from memory that we lost the Brisbane game in round 8, which we'll just totally advert right from probably the first 15 to 20 minutes of the contest. And then, of course, we had a really good win against Collingwood in round 12. And the Western Bulldogs win in round 17 was a big one as well, which kept us alive in the finals race. So I think we trailed by 37 points in the first half, and it was a stirring win, ended up winning by 28 points. And then, of course, that Port Adelaide game absolutely smashed them. And you're a big part of that game as well that afternoon, kicking 2 goals, 3, and the team should have won by more than 11 goals hadn't been for inaccurate goal kicking. I think it was 18 goals, 24 that afternoon. What do you remember most about season 2008 as being that real driver to say we can actually go this one step further as a team and crack the finals drought, which had already been at times 7 years?
Yeah, I think I can't remember all those numbers that you mentioned, but I remember that was probably the most frustrating year as far as our best was really good, and then our worst or our bad was pretty bad. I remember that round 8 game against Brisbane. I had an absolute shocker, and I remember it because Brett Ratton said to me after the game, "I think it's the worst game that I've ever played." So I've got a memory on that one. I can't remember the other ones too well, but I think it was frustrating because like I said, our best, we were coming, and we and the style of play we were playing was going to hold up in big games, but we'd let ourselves down with these uncharacteristic losses, or whether it was inexperience or whatever it was at the time. But that 2008 season was pretty frustrating because we felt like we were good enough to be in that top 8, and yet we another season goes by and we weren't.
Yeah, one player that I remember, even though I was a kid, just like being the face of that shift was obviously Chris Judd, and he sort of propelled the club into that next step when we were sort of improving. What was it like to have him around in those late years, and what do you remember about what he brought to the club?
It was pretty exciting because, like I said, we felt like we were building all along, even after I think he came 2008 was his first season. 2007 we might have finished bottom or second bottom maybe. But we felt like we were sort of on track and going better than that win-loss suggested. So to then bring the best player in the game and a phenomenal leader, and I just remember him being like his preparation was I'm not giving away any secrets here, it was just unbelievable. I remember 2 things I remember he said. One was he was surprised at how unprofessional we were. He'd say, look, we're pretty good, but at West Coast, their professionalism and training standards was elite, and he'd come off a couple of grand finals, a premiership, which was surprising to me because I was thinking we were training really hard and preparing really well, but there was certainly another level. And then the other thing was just how competitive the West Coast players were compared to how competitive we were at the time. And he said he noticed that shift sort of year on year. Every year he was there, he noticed Carlton and the team and the club becoming far more competitive and a little bit more relentless. But he mentioned that early as well, which again I was surprised at. And but it probably wasn't a secret why they were making grand finals and we were building because we weren't at their level. But and the other thing, he was just so sarcastic. I used to try and have a serious conversation with him about footy and. If I really put it on him, he'd give me an answer. But if I didn't go hard enough, he'd just give me a silly, sarcastic answer. So I think he was just sick of literally every person in the world hitting him up for advice on footy and life. And so I remember, I found it hard to get a straight answer out of him.
He's a great man, Juddy.
He's a great man. He's a funny man.
I was actually reading his book not that long ago, and it's funny that you mentioned that about the training standards and whatnot, because he did definitely mention in there that he noticed a difference when he arrived at Carlton. But it's interesting to hear that, you guys already thought you were on the right track with that. Again, I didn't have anything to compare it to, and I think we were training really hard and we were really fit and strong and doing all those things. But there was just another level if you want to bounce around. And I think you said we got to 11th in his first season. If you want to finish 11, then you train really hard and really well. And if you want to climb higher than that, then it's got to go to another level. You got to become as the ultimate professional. And like I said, he noticed the switch, and so did I over the next couple of years, and that probably coincided with me falling out of the senior side as well. So as the tempo went up and all the other players at the club were going to another level, it left me behind a little bit.
Season 2009, Brad. So I think the preseason beforehand, in the lead up, to the 2009 season, you dislocated your elbow by memory. You hurt your elbow at a preseason training session, and that basically ruled you out for the first 10 rounds of the following campaign. Just how frustrating was that? You'd already endured a number of injuries, but then to go through another injury, which I think was pretty much your first time you'd done it, just the amount of just sort of really, frustration, the way that you had to deal with.
Yeah. I don't remember ever sort of sitting there and feeling sorry for myself or anything like that. But it was actually my business partner now, Greg Bentley, tackled me in the dojo gym when we used to do wrestling and things like that. And my elbow popped out, was hanging out the other way, which I think it was only sort of 4 or 5 weeks out from round one. So and there goes sort of 3 months. So it's pretty frustrating. And I think in 2008 I could tell that I think you mentioned before, I had a reasonable 2007, and 2008 was. I didn't do a preseason, I had post-season surgery, and I was just okay, but I could feel, a new wave coming through, and I knew I had to be, the absolute peak of my powers to maintain a spot in the side and to continue to improve. And when I did that elbow, it set me back a fair bit, and then it took me a little while to get in the side, and then I think I was in and out the rest of that year, and 12 months later, it's all over.
I think just to follow up as well, Brad, too, there was a really crucial game against Sydney in round 16 at Docklands. It was a Saturday afternoon and the roof was closed, and you kicked a big goal in the third quarter. We were only up by 3 points at that stage, but your goal was sort of a real catalyst, I think, to the Blues really sort of transcending all over the Swans in the final quarter as well. Just what about that feeling right in the change rooms after the game, knowing that the team was basically 1 or 2 wins away from securing a finals berth for the first time in 8 years?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think we'd always found it hard playing against Sydney. They were always really well coached and structured up really well, and probably made it hard for us to score heavily, which I think I mentioned earlier was a bit of a strength of ours when we were on a roll. But it's a good feeling when you're only a win or 2 away from finals. The club hasn't been in finals. You've contributed at least a little bit. It's certainly a good feeling. And I mentioned before, I wish I could remember more because it's all pretty foggy now. And some of these things you're mentioning, I'm taking your word for it.
And then obviously the 99 games, I'm sure you get asked about that a fair bit, but did that kind of catch you by surprise, that delisting, or did you kind of know? I mean, you've mentioned already that you kind of did, that it was your career was kind of winding down due to the injury aspect and the lack of consistency in the side. Yeah,
no, it definitely, it didn't catch me by surprise. I did my ACL again. Finally, I had a full pre-season because 2009 I missed out on seniors footy a fair bit, and leading into 2010 I managed to do a full pre-season and was as fit and strong as I've ever been and feeling really good. And first half of the first NAB Cup cup match against Sydney, I did my ACL, and I remember walking off the ground then, and I was pretty sure I was in big strife because I was probably approaching 27, and wasn't in the senior side year before, and I was going to have an ACL, and I had to end up having a LARS procedure, which they don't do anymore, the synthetic graft, and that got me back playing, and I actually had a pretty strong back half of the year in the VFL. I got in for one game against the Pies. We lost by heaps, and I was straight out, and never got another go. But now, look, the club. Rats was really good, I think, in the lead up in the last sort of 6 to 8 rounds. We were talking about, what my plans were from a personal point of view moving forward and footy in life and things like that. So, no, I certainly wasn't surprised. I was, disappointed like anyone. But, look, it was the right call. My body was in big strife. I was pretty slow and had a shocking turning circle before having a knee reconstruction. I had one and then had another one, and it was always the right call. But I would have loved one more game. Would have given me probably a bit of closure on a footy career, but wasn't to be.
Brad, when did he come to the decision when he did do your knee against Sydney in that practice game at Blacktown that you're going to opt to undergo LARS surgery? Because we've seen Nick Malcheski, I'm pretty sure, was the first player to undergo it twice, I'm pretty sure by memory too. Campbell Heath was another player who underwent it. Even Australian golfer Nick O'Hearn underwent a LARS procedure. When did you come to that realization that you're going to opt for the non-traditional knee procedure surgery to get you back onto the football field as quickly as possible?
Yeah, probably pretty quickly. I just didn't want to have a life of what ifs, and I suppose I was good mates with Nick Malcheski growing up. We played junior footy together, so I had a lot of conversations with him prior to having it done. And I think it was just, I thought I was definitely going to be delisted, and that was going to be the end of my footy career if I didn't get one. And in my mind, I thought if I can have the LARS, get back quickly, and have a strong finish to the season, and then maybe I can continue my career. And I got half of that equation. I just didn't continue my career. In hindsight, I probably should have. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a lot easier in hindsight, but your likelihood of developing osteoarthritis and things like that are much higher having had a LARS, because you put your knee under a lot of stress straight away trying to get back. So if I had my time over, I'm not sure whether I would have undergone a LARS. I probably should have done a little more. I had a few more discussions with the sort of senior coach around where I sat, because I felt like I came back and was playing pretty good footy in the VFL, and I wasn't really in consideration for a game. And if I hadn't known that was going to be the case, then maybe I would have put my health and well-being ahead of that and had a traditional. But then I'd probably be sitting here saying, oh, what if I had a LARS procedure? Maybe I could have kept going. So I'm bouncing around a little bit, but it took a little while, and decided to have it done. And I met Cameron Norsworthy, the surgeon. When I met with him, he just said, mate, I'll get you back in 14 weeks and your knee will feel good and strong, and I'll get you 6 years out of your knee. And I think I played footy for about another 7 or 8 years, and the LARS is still in there and intact. So he did a pretty good job, local footy, that is. So, he was just really confident on what he could do. I spoke to one or two other surgeons who didn't really want to do it, and then when I met with him, he was really confident and had it done, and he obviously did a pretty good job.
After that Collingwood loss, Brad, too, you were one of 3 players to be dropped for that Friday night clash against Essendon. Andrew Walker was another unfortunate player as well, who basically his career, I think that stage was pretty much hanging the balance because there were a couple of teams that were really interested in his services. When did you come to the point during the week that you're going to be dropped for the team? And considering you'd signed a 2-year deal, I think midway through the 2008 season as well, that the point was it may be difficult to get back into the senior team, considering Rats during that week spoke about we need to add a lot more hardness and toughness to the team, and he included Richard Hadley and Mitch Robinson into the team that week. Yeah,
I don't remember. I sort of felt like I was going to get dropped, but I don't really remember the call that they're going to leave me out of the side. What I do remember, and I've said it before, is you're right, he brought in a few tough nuts, and that certainly wasn't my go. And we beat Essendon by about 80 points. And I've got a vivid memory of Brett Thornton. Brett Thornton was playing in the VFL side as well. He was obviously a really good AFL player. And him and I sat next to each other after we'd won by 80 points. And he said, it won't matter what we do today. We won't get in the senior side. And I kicked 10 goals in the VFL. And I only say this story because then I remember playing golf the following Wednesday, and the club used to send out the training squad of 27 players. And I got a vivid memory of scrolling down, expecting to think, well, I got dropped last week, bounced back, kicked 10. I'll at least be training with the senior side. And there was 27 names, and mine wasn't one of them. And there was only 6 weeks to go. And I thought, that just confirmed. I knew I was in big trouble, and I thought, I'm done here. it wasn't a nice feeling, especially on 99 games. I knew it would haunt me for a little while. And anyway, that's the way it panned out.
As long as it didn't affect your golf game that day, though, right?
It doesn't take much to get inside my head playing golf, so probably did.
Brad, going from obviously being delisted in '09 to playing state league footy over in the Sample, playing for West Adelaide, what was that change like going to a different state and playing very different footy?
It was great. It was the best thing I did. I think I sort of spoke to a few clubs in Melbourne around playing VFL footy at Collingwood, and I was pretty well progressed at Carlton, staying with the Northern Bull Ants and working a little bit at the club. But I just didn't want to be that grumpy bloke that felt like I should have been still on the list when there's young fellas running around who I thought I was better than. And I felt like I was already becoming that grumpy guy the year before, because I felt like I should have been in the side when there was when they were playing young players. And in saying that, I was the young player, 8 years earlier, who was getting the game when older players, were probably going better than me. So everyone gets their turn. But yeah, I just wanted to probably get out of Melbourne and not listen to news about Carlton every day, and just move on a little bit. And yeah, the footy over there was unreal. There's only two AFL clubs, and yet the whole state's crazy for footy. So SANFL footy's big footy, and big crowds, and there's a fair bit of relevance, when you're playing over there. And I loved it. Played with a former teammate, Adam Hartlett. He's the one who sort of got me over there, and I really enjoyed it. Spent 2 years over there. We were pretty strong, made a grand final, which we weren't able to win, but I really enjoyed playing footy over there, and I'm glad I went over there and sort of finished off and had a couple of good years playing there.
Oh, you also mentioned too, Brad.
Play that much.
Sorry, Brad.
Well, their offer wasn't great from memory, their little contract, so they didn't rate me too highly, I don't think. But anyway, didn't end up there.
You also mentioned, Brad, too, about with Brett Ratton, and you were having those conversations about post-football career as well. Did you have a pretty concrete idea on what you wanted to do post-footy?
No, I'm still not sure what I want to do. I didn't. I think like every player been in footy their whole life, my answer probably would have been, I want to be a development coach and help the younger players and all that, which which you hear a fair bit. But no, I wasn't too sure. I'd done I'd done a heap of short courses and diplomas and things, trying to sort of get an idea and keep myself busy while I was playing. But I didn't know what I wanted to do, and part of the reason I went over to Adelaide was they offered me a full-time role with their sort of junior part of the footy club. So stick with what you know, and the safety of being around a footy club and being around the boys. I went with that, and then I ended up I worked at the AFL Players Association for 7 years. Once I came back, and then jumped over to the Cricketers Association. So I knew I wanted to stay in elite sport at the time, and I had a pretty good run.
Obviously, you mentioned wanting to be a development coach and all that sort of stuff, and you did come back to Melbourne and rejoin Carlton as an assistant coach for the AFLW side. How did you enjoy your time coaching the forward line there? Is being an assistant coach or even a head coach at a lower league club something you'd ever give another crack?
I'm not sure. I absolutely loved it. We had a pretty strong side. We made a grand final, and I think we were into a prelim the next year when the season got shut down. And I don't know how well you guys know Daniel Harford, but hanging around Half, he's a good time. He's great fun. He created a great atmosphere there, and the girls were great. They gave you everything. So I really enjoyed it. We had Stephen Salopek and Andy Maher and a few of these coaches that I really enjoyed their company. So no, I really enjoyed it. And if I didn't move down to Peninsula, I would have done another year or two with Half and the girls. But I wasn't willing to cop the drive up every day. And I'm not sure what's in store. I got two little kids, and the little fella especially showing a lot of interest in ball sports. So I sort of feel like I've got plenty of time around a footy club coming, following him around or supporting him. And little girl's not showing quite the same interest at the moment. So at the moment, I'm happy enough having a bit of a spell from footy and just sort of hanging out with the kids and prioritising family. But if maybe one day I might find myself back involved in footy.
100%, that's the way. Moving on to a bit of current Blues, obviously we're entering a bit of a renaissance period, which we all love to see. Looking at the Blues in 2024, what have you made of their preseason form from what you've seen in clips and whatnot, and how do you think the season might pan out for those boys?
Yeah, I haven't seen a heap. I followed them pretty closely last year, and I think I always said when you finish up, you'll never go to the game and jump up and down again. It's sort of just what happens. But last year in those two finals, I found myself back in the stands and jumping up and down again, which was nice. it was something I sort of thought I'd lost, and yeah, to have that back, it was it was a great feeling, and yeah, I was definitely on board for the ride, and but yeah, I'm not a big a social media man or anything, so I haven't seen too much of their form this pre-season, but from what I saw last year, it's a bit like the Bulldogs. I think everything's there, everything stacks up, and now it's whether or not we can find a way to go that next little step, because I love our back line. I love Wiedering. Midfield's as strong as anyone's, and then we've got our two big forwards, and if Fantasia can bring that bit of sort of leg speed we might have been missing in the front half, I'm bullish, but I have been bullish about the Blues for what am I now, 22 years now. I've been convinced we're going to make the finals, so I haven't been a great judge, but yeah, I'm pretty excited to see how far we can go.
I think I was born thinking we'd make the finals, and then I was like, damn,
yeah.
What is this? This isn't what I signed up for.
No. It's a bit like that. I think, my young fella, he thinks he backs Collingwood at the moment because they're the best. So, which I'm not enjoying.
Change that.
Yeah, he's a big Charlie fan, so he likes Charlie. But yeah, I think you grow up just thinking you're going to win every week, and that's not reality.
It's just worked in my favor though, because I was telling the boys last week that I was probably still the only person convinced that we could make it to the finals from 15th last year. So delusion works sometimes.
No, I can't say I joined you there. I was scratching my head a little bit, and I couldn't understand what was wrong, because I thought, the list is there, and and I don't know, Michael Voss well, but what I know is he would demand elite standards, because if you saw him play, and so I'm thinking if you got the list and you've got a coach demanding elite standards, then something's wrong. But it turns out there was nothing wrong. We're just working through a couple little things, and the back half of the season was exciting footy, and I'm very bullish about the year ahead.
You spoke about Charlie before, so obviously got those two dominant forwards in Charlie and Harry. Harry didn't really seem to hit the ground running as much last year. What do you make of their season last year, kind of as a duo, and do you think they'll be able to adjust to working together in the 2024 season?
Yeah, I think Harry just probably just didn't have the polish that he might have had the year before. But I'm a big believer that you're a pretty good kick until everyone tells you a bad kick, and then all of a sudden you do become a bad kick. And I don't think he is. I remember watching him win his Coleman medal, and he had that unique sort of kick around the body. But if he was anywhere on that right hand side of the ground, he was putting it straight over the goal by his head. So I know he can do it, and I think we looked our best when Charlie would lead up on the wing, and then he'd bird it in, it'd only go about head height, and it'd go about 65 metres to Harry, and he'd get it on the fly. And so, I've got no concerns about them playing well together. And then, again, we look good when Harry's up the ground. I think that Brisbane final where he took about 10 or 12 marks, I'm a massive fan of both of them. And, I can never understand when our supporters turn on our own, and when you've got this big bloke who's won a Coleman, and he might be just not quite at the absolute top of his peak of his powers, but you're still doing a lot right. And like I said, you become a bad kick when everyone tells you a bad kick. So maybe Carlton supporters should leave him alone, and he might start whacking him straight over the goal umpire's head, which I'm sure he will. I'm
so glad that you said that though, because I definitely think that his work up the ground is so important to the structure of the team. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I loved about him, I think the year before especially, was he would be having a quiet game, and all of a sudden in the space of 10 minutes he'd kick 3 goals in a third quarter, and that's when you know you're a really good player. I think anyone can find it hard as a key forward. Sometimes the delivery coming in is not great, or there's a bit going on up the ground, or you're just your opponent's getting the better of you, especially with team defence like they play now. But his ability to stay in a game, and all of a sudden, he turns the game on its head in 10 minutes, and no matter what happens, he's going to walk off the ground with 3 goals and then 10 or 12 touches and played his role. So look, I think I think he can just not even bounce back, because I think he was pretty good last year, but I think he can be an unbelievable player for us.
That's the thing. He could take 12 marks, have 15 touches, and set up 5 goals, but because he's kicked 1 goal, 3, everyone crucifies him. But I know getting goals on the board is the way to do it. But he's still a brilliant player. He's still elite.
Absolutely.
And if you can get those goals on the board,
yeah. So I agree. He's he's a super player, and for whatever reason, some players can become one quickly, and we got short memories because no one had any concerns around his game when he was winning the Coleman medal, and now him and Charlie can work together. So I can't wait to watch them, and I love them both.
So now we'll move on to a few little segments to wrap up. We'll start off with one that we asked Kuda last week, and he gave us a very measured answer, apart from putting his great mate Ange Crystal in there, who obviously his reason was that he always kicked it to him. But we're going to ask you, Carlton's Mount Rushmore. What four names would you have on your Mount Rushmore for the Carlton Football Club?
So of all time, Carlton's greatest ever four. Is that what
All
you want?
time.
All time. All right. All right. I'm putting. Well, I don't know enough about John Nichols and Alex Jesaulenko. I've seen highlights. They won a heap of BNFs, but I probably can't judge them. So I'm going to go, if it's all right, I'm going to go from what I know, which is probably 90s onwards. So I've got Stephen Kernahan, number one. Growing up watching him, and I used to kick a few off my shin, and they'd float through, and so did Sticks. So I'll go Stephen Kernahan at one. Out the other end, Stephen Silvani. I think I don't know if he would be as good today with the way he used to hold and scrag and hit in the head and do all those sorts of things, because I was an Essendon supporter growing up and watching him on Matthew Lloyd, and I'd just be screaming thinking there's a dozen free kicks here. But yeah, what a player. Fullback of the century, unbelievable. And then the two, you've got to remember Patrick Cripps, Kerner. I love them all. I'll go Fev, because I had front row seats and he was just unbelievable. And yeah, I don't know. I'll go Cripper maybe at 4 ahead of Juddy. I don't know why. He's still going, and his ceiling might be awesome. But then there's guys like I rated Andrew Carazzo massively. What he did. We didn't have a heap of midfielders at the time who used to defend, and he would defend his opponent and stop their best clearance player and have 40 touches as well. And some of his footy was unbelievable. And then Simo on a wing, and I don't know. I want to get all these guys in now. Charlie, young fella, will be flat that I haven't mentioned Charlie Curnow, who's a superstar. But yeah, there's the list goes on. I could go all day on phenomenal players that the footy club's had, and yeah, there's a couple of, and then Sam Walsh, he could be the best player in the game in a couple of years. So
I love the
everywhere.
Cripper pick. He's kind of the face of this new movement of the club, and if he ends his career with 2 or 3 flags to his name, I think he'll be on everyone's list. So I like that pick from now, a bit preemptive.
What a warrior! How combative he is, and
Unreal.
Just his walk. He's got the big strut, and I love watching him play. The year he won the Brownlow, he was just a bull. It was you'd watch players try and tackle him, and it was like a grade 6 and versus a grade 1, just so big and strong and powerful, and and he'll be a better player having Curnow dominating up forward and Sam Walsh getting it done in the middle as well, and he'll just be a better player for it. So yeah, I love him, apologies to Juddy. I don't know why I went with him, but I went with Cripper.
I don't want to make anyone too excited either, but Cripps was moving very well at training the other day. You did have the strut going on, so I'm looking forward to seeing that unfold. In terms of our 2024 predictions little segment, so we've got, where do you think Carlton will finish on the ladder this year, and who will take home the John Nichols medal?
All right, we'll go top. I think we'll finish. I think top 4. I want to say top 2. I want to say top 2. I can't. There's no reason why we can't. I'd have Weeder in for another BNF because he just plays well every single week. But it sounds like this calf might have been a pretty serious one, so he might be coming off a short run up. So Sam Walsh's final series. I watched him. I was at those games and watched him live, and couldn't believe the impact he was having on the game and his work rate. And I can't really think of a weakness he's got. So we'll go Walshy for a BNF. His first one, wasn't it? Has he won a BNF, Walshy? Yeah, he has won one. No, he hasn't.
I think he has.
I think he might have won it in was it 2018?
2021.
No, didn't he get drafted in 2018?
Yeah, 2018 he was drafted. I think
2019 or
2021.
2021, I think.
We've been pretty lucky
having
a few different players. Having a few different players, we've been pretty lucky going from Cripper to Weeders and Walshy. We've had some very good players pop up for that walk.
And key forwards don't kick 80 odd goals anymore, and Charlie Curnow didn't win a BNF doing it. So and Harry Mackay won a Coleman without winning a BNF. So yeah, there's some the top end talent. And then I read the article during the week around our depth and some players who they think are probably going to miss out from our best 22, and there's some serious talent in there. So it's good to be not one of those players missing out with the talent. It's good to be sitting back and enjoying the top end.
Before we move to our last segment, I want to ask Chloe and Yuri as well. What are your predictions for the season? Where we finish and and who takes home the medal?
Well, I
Yeah,
actually did it. Oh, you go. It's all right.
Yeah, sorry about that, Chloe. So I think we can finish top four. I had us finishing seventh last season. I just think the whole improvements the team made from the second half of last season, altering the game plan, not using so much the boundary line to really set up their attacks as well, and the tackling aspect as well. When you look at the whole numbers with the tackling, it was over 70 a game pretty much for the second half of last season. Whereas that fateful night against Essendon, we only had 33 tackles. So that's a vastly different contrast between the pressure that we're playing in the first half of the season, where teams were just waltzing by us, compared to the second half. And I think for the BNF, I think Walsh is going to win it. I just feel as though after what he was able to do last season, he came off again that off season, whatever it was, the back surgery that had been hampering him quite significantly. And he spoke about it as well in another podcast too. So Walsh is definitely in line to win another BNF.
Good call, Chloe. How about you?
Well, I did a whole, call me crazy, but I did a whole ladder predictor, like on the AFL website, how they've got the actual ladder predictor where you can compare the fixtures. Because obviously it's easy to say, we'll finish here, we'll finish there, but this team's going to be good. But depending on their matchups and like whether it's a home game, away game. So I just thought I'm going to do the whole thing. And I had us at about second. So I won't complain about that. It was like us, Brisbane and Collingwood tied though, like on percentage. So that makes sense in my mind, which is great.
I think that's
and
far
then,
and away the three best teams. I think
Yeah.
we'll be top three with those two. Who'd you have for the middle?
And then I want to say Cripps, but I'll say Walsh. I just think Cripps always polls well. Like he didn't have his best. Obviously, I still thought he was great last year, but not as good as his Brownlow year, and he still finished fifth. So, but I think that Walsh will definitely shake off the cobwebs after that injury, and will find his way back up the top again.
Yeah, I've got second and Walsh as well, and I think Walsh is going to win the Brownlow. So it'd be very
Me
interesting
too.
if you won a Brownlow and not not a John Nichols medal. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, we'll wrap up with a little intro quiz that we do at the Inner Sanctum whenever a new journo comes in. It's short, sharp answers, a few quick fire questions, and we'll lay those off to you. So, first favorite TV show?
Seinfeld.
Good answer.
Show
Great answer.
my age a bit there, am I or not?
No,
It's
I
a
love
great
it.
show. Great show.
It is a great show.
Favorite movie?
Blood Diamond.
Oh, it's a different one. I was expecting another Shawshank Redemption, as always.
That answer might actually be if you had have asked first movie you can think of, Blood Diamond's the same answer. So whether it's my favorite, I'm not sure, but it was the first one that popped in my head.
There you go. I mean, it's a good one, regardless. Go to karaoke song.
Oh, you don't want to hear me sing. It's horrible. I got a memory of Barnaby French, who was Carlton's ruckman in the 2000s, telling me one after we just finished singing a song after a game, he just looked at me and said, "Gee, you got a shocking voice." So no, I'm not. I'm your stand at the back of the pub, not get up and get you. Do not want to hear me sing. It's horrible.
It's fair.
My kids won't
keep it to the shower.
That's it.
Favorite flavor of potato chip?
Oh, I'm a corn chip. Go to a corn chip. I can't think. There's a brand that the local IGA sell down here, and I can't find it anywhere else. And they're Doritos and that on steroids. They're unbelievable. They're good. So yeah, a good corn chip.
There's a good corn chip at Aldi. I don't know how we've gotten to talk about Aldi.
Oh, is that those El Toro ones?
El Toro, those ones.
Yeah.
They're good.
That could be the brand. I'm not sure if
they're
that's
a good cheap option. If you
I
don't want
don't
to go for
think
the
they're
Doritos,
quite as bougie as IGA Doritos, though. I'm just going to say
probably
that.
not.
They're expensive.
Brad's talking about at all. Who's the hardest player you've matched up on in your career?
Hardest to get a kick was Harry O'Brien then, Horatio Lumumba now. When early days when he wasn't worried about getting a kick, and he was just lightning quick, strong, and he just sit in your pocket, and he was fit. And when you're playing on a half-forward flank, yeah, you would not get a single easy kick, and you need half a dozen easy kicks to go with the other ones that you really earn to have a reasonable day on a half-forward flank, and you wouldn't get one on him. And I played on James Third for maybe 15 minutes one day. And I just couldn't believe how good he was. There's a couple of times where I thought, I've got the perfect sit. My only go was taking an overhead mark. And there was a couple where I thought, this is going to be easy. Shell and peas, don't kick it there. And then I'd jump up and turn around and look. And all of a sudden I'm standing on the mark and he's taking a mark. And yeah, it was just, it was unbelievable what he was able to do. And especially when I thought I was in the box seat, I never experienced that in the same way where it was just, this guy's just way too good for me.
Unreal. And our last question is the big one for us. Favorite flavor of shapes?
But original. The original.
Savory.
No, sorry, original barbecue shapes. The original bar. Is it barbecue?
Oh,
The
barbecue.
Green
Yeah,
box.
barbecue.
Full
Good.
take.
You got scared for a minute there.
Is there another answer? No one's
What
ever
about
answered.
No,
do you
barbecue
have
is the
thoughts
best answer.
on do you have thoughts on the barbecue when they changed it for like a year or so, if anyone remembers that? When they
They
No,
changed all the
I
flavours,
remember.
didn't they?
I remember it was big news. I remember they were talking about it on the radio, but or maybe I had a 12-month spell from shapes at the time. But yeah, I didn't know there was another answer to that question.
Yeah, no, barbecue is the
Don't-
answer. There's a few
Don't
other
mess with them.
random
Yeah.
answers people throw out, but barbecue's the right answer.
It's the
Yeah,
answer,
I wouldn't mind getting to the bottom of why they thought they needed to change it or what they actually did.
Yeah,
Not
no, that
sure
would be
at all.
interesting to learn. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Glad they
Oh,
changed it back,
and
though.
also before I forgot about Kuda. In my greatest players of all time, he was
Great shout,
1999 Kuda is the greatest player that's ever lived. And then what I loved about him was sorry, real quick was his body let him down, saying he couldn't get off the ground anymore. So he went and became the #1 clearance player in the game in a pretty ordinary team without a dominant ruckman in 2004 or 5 or whatever season it was. Late in his career, and I don't think many players can do that. And I don't think many people sort of understood. They all thought, oh, he's not the same Kuda he was, and that's because he couldn't. His body wouldn't let him, but he went and became the best clearance player in the game. Which I just watch him do that at his age and with the body I knew he had was it was unbelievable.
That's a true sign of a brilliant player. Someone who, I mean, we all know how versatile he was, but being able to adapt like that when your body's not letting you do the same things you can do anymore and still be one of the best players in the game is just otherworldly.
And he could still play. If you see him now with his every now and then I see him with his shirt off still. He likes to post those and and he's looking at $1 million. I think he could still play.
Mind him in the midfield, centre half back, centre half forward.
Yeah,
Go where you want. Don't care.
Prime Kudo is just about the best of the lot. It was unbelievable.
Unreal.
Everyone's trying to
Well,
figure out who's going to come in for Weeders. Maybe it needs to be Kuda.
maybe
that'd be
Kuda,
right.
centre half back.
Yeah.
We're spoiled down back, aren't we? Got Lewis Young sitting there ready to go, and
Yeah.
McGovern and Chincotta and Kemp, and
Yeah.
we're spoiled now. That's the good thing. I think a year or two ago, if you knew Wiedering was going to miss the first few games, you'd think we're in big strife. But I think we've as good as he is, and I rate him massively. We might be at a stage now where it's no big deal.
Very lucky, very lucky. Well, with that wraps us up for the second episode of All the Champions. Brad, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to have a chat.
And Chloe and Yuri, thank you for joining me again.
Great to be back on, Brandon.
Awesome to go again. And thanks so much for coming on today, Brad.
No worries. Who's on the list next time?
I'm not too sure yet, but we'll
Right.
let people know as that
If
comes
you
out.
need
But
any dirt, if they're from the losing era in the 2000s, you need any dirt, let me know and I'll try and feed you some.
that'd be great, to be honest. We'll hold you to that one.
No worries.
Thank you for all the support on our first episode. We greatly appreciate that, and we hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to give the podcast a follow on X, Instagram, and TikTok at All the Champions. Like and subscribe to House of Footy, the home of your footy fix, and we'll see you next time.